It is April 30th, 2026. We are in Lakeside, California, and we're coming back and speaking to someone here who's a governmental watchdog that travels all over Southern California and beyond to ensure that the government is doing the things they're supposed to do and not the things they're not supposed to be doing. And we're going back to April 17 at this place, 2026. I was filming a candidate for State Senate 40, a Republican, one of the Republican candidates, and we were accosted and by a employee of this building right here behind me, and who tried to stop or interfere with us. So we're doing a follow-up. I've given the link to Mary Davis here. She's looked at it and she's going to have some thoughts on how this can happen. This is a public place, and I do want to say that I am not a First Amendment auditor. I have no interest in that at all, and but I just seek the truth. This is a taxpayer-funded county parks, San Diego County Parks and Recreation Department that runs this and is funded for it. A beautiful place for kids fish here. There's wildlife. Here's Mary Davis.
Hi, yes, and thank you. And first of all, I want to commend you for holding the line on the First Amendment rights, and then also for standing up. The thing is, if it's not on film, it didn't happen. We live in a digital age, so kudos to you for getting everything and capturing that evidence. And it has turned into evidence, because when people are trying to suppress your rights, you need to stand up. And again, always politely, civilly. But what I saw on that film greatly concerned me. If you had had any type of other interaction, whether it's a quinceañera or a birthday party or just a mom doing a photo shoot for her kid's birthday, I don't think that you would have been challenged like that. And then once you get into the spectrum of asking questions, what are you filming, what is this for? I understand if it would be commercial and you have a whole setup and entourage, but that was not the case. You were simply using your First Amendment rights to get some information and to document and archive that information. And so I really salute you for having pushed back on that. I think it's really important. One of the things in my watchdogging, what I've seen is what I call government overreach, or I like to dub it spaghetti governance. They throw it to the wall and see what sticks, and they will get away with what let them get away with. So if you had just simply said, oh, okay, are we bothering you, and you left, then you're letting them, the next time they'll push further. What I found interesting from that engagement is that when she confronted, most people respectfully engage. It's kind of a prodding and a questioning. And then when you stood up for your right, most people at that point, like our prior encounter with that ranger or whatever, the young man, he accepted the information and he kind of backed off and realized, that we were within our rights and not obstructing or doing anything. But what I saw in the footage that you provided, that woman pushed far beyond where she wanted to know what was being filmed, why it was being filmed. Again, once there's assurances that it's not for commercial purposes, that should be the extent of it. No permits. You don't see other people getting questioned about what they're filming. I just saw a mom here, and here we have this beautiful egret right here beside us. But the mom was filming her daughter watching the ducks and the birds, and certainly she didn't get approached. So the First Amendment has to stand for something, or it stands for nothing. And so I really encourage everybody to assert their rights. And you mentioned the First Amendment auditor. I just want to really briefly explain that. I've seen them on the internet, never encountered them myself. They are actually provocateurs. They're looking for reactions. They poke the bear. They try and film people having a peaceful lunch. They're looking for reactions. That's not us.
And hits on their social media.
It's on their
page,
social
whatever.
media. They're doing it for clicks, likes, clickbait, that kind of thing. No, we are actually just disseminating information, relevant information to the people of San Diego County of particular interest. And so I just really want to emphasize that this is not being done for any nefarious reason other than honestly trying to get people to be more civically engaged with their government.
So, Mary, when often, sometimes people just don't realize that if they're told to do this or not do that, or to leave, or whatever the situation, they may feel that simply because the person seems to be a person of authority, the person that's telling the guest to leave or stop or whatever the case may be. So how can the ordinary citizen like we are, just people making differences a little bit at a time, and hopefully big differences. But how can an ordinary citizen handle this? Like, let's say a mom came here, or a dad, or a couple people, or whatever the relationship might be, and they're taking pictures, or they set up with a tripod, right? How, where can they get help if they feel that, I don't think this is right, and maybe they don't want to call the particular entity, and this is a government entity under the County Board of Supervisors, the county parks. What kind of wisdom can you share that the ordinary people might use, irregardless, but especially with any type of governmental agency like this?
Right, and so one of the things is to recognize a violation, you have to know the rules. So I would encourage to reach out and get educated about filming in public, and about also to know that you have the right to do that if it's a publicly accessible area. If somebody is going to come out and confront or challenge you, the first thing I would say is like, well, are you alleging that I'm violating a law? And if so, then I want the specific section. The next question is, they might default to policy. Well, it's our policy. And they'd say, okay, well, could you show me the policy? And it's my understanding that it's the policy for this entity involves commercial filming only. Again, if they're trying to allege that you are doing anything, but at this point, know the rules, recognize the violations, move forward, and always, again, respectful engagement. I try to handle things at the lowest level possible. So usually you can do that with just a civil conversation. If they see you standing up for your rights, then they will usually back off. If not, then it might be time to think about the next stage would be to put it in writing and to make a gentle inquiry, and then if you have to escalate, you can go to the complaint route. I do try to avoid that because I think most people operate, in fact, it's interesting, Starbucks actually trains its employees, always assume good intent. And I think most civil servants operate with good intent, and so I want to respect that they maybe have a job to do. But what I saw in that video, especially having compared and contrast to our prior, where the one respectful young man, he asked a question and then he backed off and accepted our answer. Versus with that candidate the other day, the woman did not accept the answer, pushed a bad position that she had no right to uphold. You can't go around saying, what are you filming, and checking for viewpoint, or if it's clearly not a commercial endeavor.
Yeah, and also under photography law, and it can be abused too, but under basic photography law, just the ordinary person with a camera, video, whatever, if you're in a public place, which is this, not a event where you pay, where it's a private, it's a public place, a park, the street, your neighborhood, whatever it might be, downtown, whatever you see, whatever your camera or whatever your eyeballs can see, you can photograph and or video. The caveat is you cannot use that in those images in some type of illegal or nefarious purposes. And there was an example in North County years ago about someone at an event, and they put the pictures in a certain kind of magazine, and they were juveniles and so forth. So you can film anything, and you can film in a window. I won't do that. I don't, unless it's an event that I'm going to, like maybe a fire or some type of event. However, maybe you can comment on that, about the photography law. And this applies because everybody has a cell phone, and that's a good camera, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I do wear a body-worn camera frequently. I have it with me. It's not filming now. I just show you how I wear it. It comes on a necklace. You can get it for $60 on Amazon. But it's interesting because everybody does have a cell phone. And so people will think nothing. If I had my phone out, people wouldn't think about it. But then they see the camera, and there's a psychological mechanism, which I find very intriguing about it, where it transfers an air of authority. But as far as the filming rights, yeah, if it's in public, you have the right to film. I would again be cautious, and you can't use those images then to say whoever you filmed supports a certain product or thinks a certain way on a position. You know, you have to have ethical sourcing, ethical use. But that said, I feel like we need a lot more people that are informed of their rights. And one of the other issues I've learned is you've got to push the limits and get to the boundaries, because otherwise they just pat you on the head and send you on your way. So I'm really glad to see that you are standing up for the First Amendment and for rights. I mean, one of the people don't realize First Amendment, the reason it's first, it's the bedrock foundation. If you live in fear of speaking or viewpoint or having a certain, that's how you suppress dissent. It's how you suppress, we look at communist regimes, one of the first things they do, like Pravda, ironically the truth in Russia, that takes over the machines. And I do want to talk about the press, because I was at a press conference yesterday and I was concerned what I saw from our press, that there seemed to be a lot of viewpoint slant, narrative control. They did not seem to be open. I had an image that I was trying to afterwards raise awareness on, and they didn't seem interested at all in it. And so my issue for journalism, true journalism, seeks to tell both sides of the story. Otherwise, it's narrative.
And let's get back to the body camera which you wear. And okay, so you go into a lot of city council or different groups and organizations. So what is that like? Have you had any issues with people saying either shut it off or remove it? And can you kind of talk to that? But conversely, talk about places where you're basically welcome. They know who you are. You're not a bad actor. You know, you're taking some video. You want some evidentiary stuff of what happened. You know, you have a memory. You can look at it later.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The camera brings accountability, and people's behavior changes. And I go back to the San Diego City Council. I went there on a Monday to speak on an issue, and I forgot my camera that day. And Sean Elo Rivera sat up there, and he smirked at me the whole entire time. And of course, I didn't have a record of it. So the next day, I went back to go make another comment, but this time I made sure. And so now what I've taken to do is I will put the video in my public comment, and then I put my body worn, and I do a video so you can see the dais, because most of these public agencies, they will either just only show the speaker, sometimes show the dais, but they seldom show both. So again, information is power, and gauging people's reactions, and that's why I get back into the clapping issue at the Board of Supervisors. They allow clapping for their proclamations at the beginning, but not for when we the people speak. And I have a huge, if there's any First Amendment lawyer, I have tons of files and cases and links to these videos where they are telling us that we cannot clap, and yet they allowed back in April, I think in 2024, I think it was, that they allowed the unions to literally take over the chamber, and they didn't disclare, they took a break, but they didn't eject anybody. So there's definitely a double level of standard, but we the people are not disruptive. Clapping is not disruptive. They allow clapping for things of their liking, therefore they need to allow it for we the people.
And Mary, how long have you been doing this watchdog work and all over the place?
Since about 2021, and you know, I encourage you, I just started lurking. I saw a lot of what I call double standards, to put it politely, hypocrisy, that there were rules that only applied to certain people, certain segments, and so as I started delving into it, what I found is once people get control, the true test of a ethical leader is they will hand back control at the earliest opportunity. And when people refuse to hand back control, that should be a red flag. And so the thing I saw during COVID, and then as I started learning more about government and seeing it, there were just so many things. And at the county, you need to be aware of, they are on a fiscal cliff. They are starting to drive it over the cliff, just like the city. You know, we see the dire straits that the city is in. So all these people that are like for socialism or think you just tax billionaires, well, maybe it starts with the billionaires, but pretty soon you're on the menu, because the whole thing about socialism, communism, there's never enough money for the next progressive goal.
Right. Well, Mary, I want to thank you so much for your time today, and I hope that any viewer who's looking at this, and wherever they may be, locally or another place, that they take some of the recommendation that you did about doing it calmly, maybe get a body camera, don't confront, but know your rights, right? Because it's so easy for our rights to be trampled on, especially the First Amendment. this trampled on, like what happened on April 17th in this very beautiful place right here. So I want to thank you again, Mary.
Thank you so much.
All right.